An old dog, graying and forgotten, stands shivering outside a glowing restaurant on the coldest night of winter, his breath fogging the window as families inside laugh and share warm meals. Out there, nobody notices him anymore, except for one man. That's how it started, right at the edge of the snowdrift outside the lakeside grill, where the world seemed to have moved on and left the dog behind, a memory in fur, with nothing but frostbitten paws and haunted eyes. Now, you probably think this is just another sad stray story, but trust me, it's got teeth. Because that dog, battered and nearly invisible, would turn out to be the one clue left in a case no one else could solve, and all he wanted in return was a chance to belong again. Yeah, that happened. Sometimes life's like that. See, in the heart of Silverbrook, Colorado, snow had been falling for days, muting everything from city lights to the pulse of the town itself. Inside the lakeside grill, the smell of roasted duck and garlic bread mixed with jazz and laughter, waiters weaving through the crowd while the outside world faded away in a haze of white. Shadow, his name, whether anyone knew it or not, huddled close to the window, fur mottled and dirty, ribs showing, watching plates pass from hand to hand. He lifted a paw, tapping the glass in a way that was almost polite, like he remembered a different life. Nobody cared. Not until Officer Nathan Cole, walking home after a brutal 12-hour shift, spotted him. Nathan wasn't the kind of guy who let his feelings show, but when he saw the dog, something inside him cracked. You know what I mean? Sometimes you see a look, a gesture, and it cuts right through all the armor you've built up over the years. Nathan's dad had been a cop too, and after he was killed in the line of duty, Nathan had learned the hard way that letting anything in, even for a second, was a risk. But there he was, watching as a waiter dumped leftover food into the trash and then tried to chase Shadow away, waving a rag and yelling as if the old dog was something dirty that needed to be scrubbed from the world. Shadow didn't growl, didn't fight back. He just shrank, ears down, tail tucked, the way you do when life's handed you nothing but closed doors. Nathan stepped in, and for a second, you could feel the tension, like the moment before a storm hits. Was that really necessary? He asked the waiter, his voice quiet but sharp. The waiter stammered about health codes and managers and how the dog was just a stray, but Nathan, he looked closer and saw the truth. This wasn't just any dog. There was a story in those eyes that he crouched low, waiting, not pushing, just offering a kind of wordless respect. The dog edged closer, wary but hopeful. Before long, the kitchen manager burst out, wielding a wooden spoon like a weapon, banging it against the dumpster, trying to scare Shadow off. It wasn't just about the dog. Nathan saw himself, a scared kid standing outside his uncle's house after his dad's funeral, clutching a suitcase, not sure if he'd ever be welcome anywhere again. He remembered Duke, the family dog, pressing close to keep him warm. It hurt, but Nathan didn't back off. He showed the manager his badge and quietly told him Shadow wasn't just a stray. He'd been a working dog once, a canine. You could see it in the way he held himself. The manager scoffed, but Nathan waited him out until he slunk back inside, leaving man and dog alone in the snow. Nathan opened the restaurant door, badge on display, and led Shadow inside, right up to the fire where a young hostess stood frozen with indecision. "He's with me," Nathan said, simple as that. The room fell silent as the old German shepherd limped across the floor, every pair of eyes following. A waitress named Maya, with the kind of tired grace that comes from too many double shifts and too much life, brought out water and plain chicken. A little girl, Sophie, watched wide-eyed and asked, "Why is he so nice to a dog that looks broken?" Nathan answered honestly, "Because he deserves it, just like anyone." The restaurant thawed just a bit. People started to talk in softer tones, stealing glances at the old dog curled up by the fire, finally full. Nathan, running his fingers along Shadow's battered collar, felt something, a chip. He pulled out his scanner and found what no one else had bothered to look for. This dog had a name, a history, a badge number. Shadow, K9, retired, missing after an explosion, handler killed. Presumed dead. But he wasn't dead. He'd just been lost. Nathan sat there in the warm hum of the restaurant, staring at the records on his phone, while Shadow pressed close, as if to say, "I'm still here." Before long, the general manager came over. All business, no animals allowed. Health code, precedent, the usual. Nathan stood up, calm but resolute. "Then I'll leave with him." For a moment, the whole place was quiet, until a Vietnam vet at a nearby table stood, put cash on the table, and said, "Dinner's on me," for him. One by one, others joined. Teachers, truckers, even Maya the waitress. Each adding bills, each making a stand, until the manager just nodded and said, "He can stay." And for the first time in years, Shadow wasn't invisible anymore. When the snow let up, Nathan took Shadow home. Adoption papers were signed the next day, but the real bond had been sealed long before, across glass, in the cold, in that silent trust. Shadow rode with Nathan on patrol, stiff-legged but proud, and it didn't take long for him to prove he still had the nose and heart of a cop. One morning, he barked and led Nathan to an abandoned building, straight to evidence from a missing officer's case. That find cracked open a string of clues leading to a break in the explosion case that had cost Shadow everything. When the department honored him at a ceremony, Shadow stood beside Nathan, K9 vest gleaming. As the crowd rose to applaud, a hero returned from the cold. He wasn't just a survivor. He was the missing piece, the last link in a chain of justice, and a living reminder that loyalty never really dies. That night, as Nathan drove home under a fresh blanket of snow, Shadow curled up beside his boots, safe and content at last. And it wasn't about a meal or a medal or even a warm place to sleep. It was about seeing someone, truly seeing them, when the rest of the world turned away. Maybe we all have a shadow, waiting to be noticed, hoping for a second chance if this story got to you. Even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, tell us where you're watching from, and share what justice, loyalty, or forgiveness means to you. Hit subscribe, because trust me, there are more stories out there waiting for someone to care. Until next time, keep your heart open, and maybe, just maybe, the world will feel a little less cold. Life doesn't just give you one second chance, Sometimes, when you finally let your guard down, thinking things are safe, that's when the world throws you another curveball. A few weeks after the ceremony, the snow in Bellwood melted into dirty slush, the air crisp and clear, almost like a reset. Nathan and Shadow had slipped into their new rhythm. Early patrols, late-night walks, slow mornings by the window. It was a peace neither of them took for granted, but peace is never built to last, is it? One morning, right as the sun was just breaking over the pines, Nathan found Shadow standing by the door, tail twitching. The old dog had developed this habit, staring out across the front yard like he was waiting for someone. Nathan poured his coffee, grunted, "Early, even for you." But Shadow didn't move. There was a sharpness in his gaze, something Nathan hadn't seen since that night at Lakeside Grill. Before he could think, the police radio on the counter crackled to life, static laced with urgency. "All units, possible break-in at the old Connolly farm, Highway 2. Shots fired. Suspect may still be on site." Nathan barely had time to suit up before Shadow was waiting at the cruiser, nose pressed to the door, almost vibrating with energy. You could feel it in the air. Something was off, like the world was holding its breath. The drive out was tense, the kind of silence that isn't empty, but charged. Shadow stood alert in the back seat, eyes tracking the horizon, like he'd slipped right back into the job he was born for. When they pulled up to the Connolly farm, Nathan saw tire tracks cut deep in the mud, fresh footprints leading toward the collapsed barn. Backup was still minutes away, but Nathan knew he couldn't wait. Sometimes instinct is all you have. He let Shadow out, clipped the leash just in case, but the dog didn't need guidance. His nose went to the ground, body coiled, tail straight as an arrow. Nathan followed, heart pounding, every sense on high alert. They rounded the side of the barn just as a shot rang out. Close, way too close. Nathan hit the dirt. Shadow froze, ears back, but not panicked. Another shot, this time wilder, pinged off a rusted tractor. Police, drop your weapon. Nathan's voice cut through the cold morning. For a second, all he could hear was the wind whistling through the broken boards. Then, movement. A man burst out from behind a stack of hay, wild-eyed, hands shaking, pistol pointed straight at Nathan. It happened fast. The man fired once, twice. Nathan felt the bullet snap past his ear. But before he could react, Shadow lunged, tearing free from Nathan's grip with a force that belonged to a much younger dog. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, body low, teeth bared, not a hint of hesitation. The suspect stumbled, tried to turn the gun, but Shadow was already there, clamping down on his forearm, knocking the weapon loose. Nathan rushed in, cuffed the man as Shadow backed off, still growling, eyes never leaving the suspect's face. Blood smeared the dirt, the suspect howling, but alive. "He could have killed you, you know," Nathan said, breathless, one hand on Shadow's back as the backup finally arrived, sirens echoing down the highway. Shadow panted, tongue lolling, but there was a glint in his eyes, a pride Nathan hadn't seen since before the scars and the hunger. Back at the station, Shadow was the talk of the department, again. Officers patted his head, someone brought a fresh donut, and Captain Alvarez, never one for sentiment, knelt down, her usually steely voice soft. "You just saved a life, old boy. Yours, and probably his too." Even Maya, stopping by after her shift, dropped off a bag of rotisserie chicken. "He's a legend now," she whispered to Nathan. "You better start writing his biography." But trouble has a way of trailing after those who don't go looking for it. That afternoon, a detective from Colorado State came down. Name was Ray Dietz, tall, sharp-suited, with a stare that could peel paint. He asked Nathan into his office, closed the door, and laid out a series of old photos. Each one showed Shadow, proud, younger, besides Sergeant Moreno. "You know what you're harboring, right?" Ray said, voice low. "That dog's evidence in an active investigation. Moreno's death wasn't an accident. There are people who'd rather see Shadow disappear, and not all of them are on this side of the law." Nathan's jaw tightened. "He's not evidence. He's a survivor." Ray just shrugged, pushing a file across the desk. "You can't always protect him. Sometimes, the past drags us back whether we want it or not." That night, as Nathan sat by the window, Shadow curled at his feet, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The news had already leaked online. A viral post, Shadow's story, people demanding justice, others whispering conspiracy. Some called the old dog a hero. Others said he was just a pawn in something bigger and darker. Days passed, and every morning, Nathan found his mailbox stuffed with letters. Some had crayon drawings of Shadow. Others sent threats, warning him to let the past stay buried. Then, one evening, Nathan came home to find his door ajar, muddy prints leading through the hallway, the faint smell of cigarettes lingering in the air. Shadow stood in the middle of the living room, tail stiff, hackles raised. On the table was a single Polaroid, a blurry shot of Shadow as a young K9 beside Moreno, with a message scrawled on the back: "You can't save everyone." Nathan's hands shook as he locked every door, double-checked every window. The world outside suddenly felt smaller, more dangerous. That night, he lay awake, listening to Shadow's steady breathing, a reminder that sometimes loyalty is all you have when everything else falls away. But if you think this is where the story ends, think again. Shadows from the past don't just fade. They gather, they thicken, and sometimes they reach out to pull you back. Nathan made a promise to Shadow that night. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Oh, let me ask you. If you were in Nathan's shoes, would you risk everything to protect a friend, even if it meant going up against the system itself? Do you believe the past should be left alone? Or does justice mean digging until the truth is out, no matter who gets hurt? Drop your thoughts below, share your own stories, and hit subscribe if you want to hear what happens next. Because trust me, the fight's just getting started.